It was a quiet Sunday when everything changed. Daniel was on the couch with his usual black coffee, flipping through channels while I chopped vegetables in the kitchen. The house felt ordinary, warm, safe, the kind of afternoon that settles into the bones. Then the anchor's voice sharpened, and something in the broadcast pulled me out of the rhythm. I glanced over and found Daniel frozen, the remote slipping from his fingers as his eyes locked on the screen. The footage was brutal. Bombed streets, people running, buildings collapsing. For most viewers, it was news. For Daniel, it was a doorway. I watched his hands begin to tremble. When I reached for the remote to turn the sound down, he put a hand over mine. "Leave it," he whispered, and his voice broke. That sentence rewired the afternoon into something else. The scenes on TV were from a place he'd been stationed years before, a place he'd never wanted to talk about. Whenever I'd ask about the Army, he'd say it was behind him. Now I realized behind him had only been a lie to the rest of us. The images had pried open a wound he'd been holding shut. He left the living room and closed the bedroom door. I gave him space at first, thinking it was what he needed. Hours later, I found him on the edge of the bed, hands knotted together, staring at the floor like he'd misplaced the world. When he finally spoke, it was small and raw. "It's the same village." I thought it was gone. Then the tears came, big, unsteady sobs that shook his body in a way I'd only seen when his mother died. The days after were hard in ways I hadn't anticipated. Daniel withdrew. He ate little, slept poorly, woke in panicked sweats with screams torn from him. Nightmares became ordinary nights. Small things triggered him. A siren-like crack from a neighbor's car, a smell from the kitchen. And whatever calm we'd coax would dissolve instantly. He refused help at first. "I'm not weak," he told me, ashamed. "I'll get through this." But he didn't. He sank. Eventually he agreed to see a counselor, but only once. He came back more shattered than before. "Talking makes it worse," he said, and retreated into silence. He stopped answering friends, stopped going to work. He spent whole afternoons sitting in the dark, lost in a memory I couldn't enter. Once I found him in the garage holding an old Army photograph in one hand and a half-empty whiskey bottle in the other. "They didn't make it," he murmured. "We tried. We failed." That sentence exposed the deepest cut. It wasn't only fear. It was survivor's guilt, decades of promises and faces he couldn't forget. I felt helpless. I'm not a therapist. I'm his wife. All I had was presence. I made calls, looked for resources, found a local support group for veterans, and tracked down one of his old Army friends to come by. I begged, softened, insisted. Gradually, painfully slowly, he let in a few lifelines. He began going to the support group once a week. He started keeping a journal like the counselor suggested, writing the loose, jagged things his mouth couldn't hold. Progress wasn't tidy. Some days he seemed almost like himself. He'd smile, joke, help with small chores. Other days the old shadows returned and swallowed him whole. But the tiny, steady things mattered. The journal entries he kept, the single group meeting he attended, the way he let me hold him after a nightmare instead of shutting me out. Those were the threads of recovery. Uneven, fragile, real. A year on, Daniel isn't who he once was. He smiles less easily. He speaks more quietly. There's a new honesty in him, though, a willingness to show the crack rather than pretend it isn't there. Sometimes he wakes in tears, but now he lets me hold him. He doesn't avoid the past to protect others. He carries it, blunt and heavy, and sometimes sets it down long enough to breathe. We stopped watching the news together. I stopped asking him questions he wasn't ready to answer. Instead, I learned to sit beside him without trying to fix anything, ready to listen if, and only if, he wanted to speak. Loving him hasn't been a triumph. It's been a constant choice to stay when things are difficult, to be the safe harbor that answers, not flees. That day the video opened what had always been there, but it also started a path. It broke him, yes, but it also forced the truth into the light and, slowly, the possibility of healing. He has changed. He is hurt, and he is still here. I will be too, as long as he needs me, because love doesn't leave when it becomes hardest. It stays and learns how to hold what's broken.